They kiss you only after your silence has proven fatal. You sat across from her while she wept into her own performance, and something in you, ancient, brutal, divine, did not flinch. She wanted the sound of your submission, but your quiet was too old, too cruel, the kind of quiet that once fed lions while Rome clapped. You remember the boy you used to be starving for a woman's approval like a dog sniffing for divine crumbs. But the Stoic kills the boy, and women smell the corpse. Now they say you're cold, detached, dangerous. They circle you like beasts too proud to beg. Yet they wait. They always wait, because a man who does not react makes the world nervous. And women above all feel that nerve. No woman controls the man who holds the silence like a sword, and if that sword has cut you open already, then let it echo. Like the video, leave your shadow in the comments, subscribe and stay near the cruelty that made you immune. She pressed her crisis into your hands like a wounded bird, trembling with crafted sorrow. You did not close your fingers. You let the feathers fall. No comfort, no rescue, only that unspeakable stillness, the one that unnerves because it listens without offering itself. That was the first time she looked at you like a stranger, not because you were cruel, but because you were unmoved. She had built her rhythm on men who yielded, men who softened, recoiled, soothed. But your silence was not absence. It was presence without submission. It was the throne no one could approach without kneeling. This is what they fear, not violence, not vulgarity, but composure without apology. The look in your eyes that asks for nothing, not even belief, because you've stepped outside her theater and from the balcony. Her cries sound like lines. Once, you flinched when she accused. You collapsed when she withheld. You offered explanations like flowers at a tomb, hoping the performance of guilt would resurrect her approval. But the Stoic in you is a graveyard, and no woman brings a storm to a grave expecting rain. They call you emotionally unavailable, cold, a red flag. But they do not leave. They stay. They cry louder. They test more. Because they are not trying to be loved, they are trying to be powerful. And the only thing more seductive than love is breaking a man who does not bend. You've become the test, the mirror, the unbreakable thing she wants to shatter just to prove she still has magic. But you know the secret now. There is no magic, only manipulation performed as vulnerability. She says, "Why don't you care?" And you smile inwardly, because the question is not about care, it is about control. Caring, to her, means yielding. It means she pulls and you follow. She pushes and you collapse. That's what she calls emotional connection, a man who lets her storm define his seasons. But the Stoic builds his seasons elsewhere. He is not winter when she withdraws. He is not spring when she returns. His weather belongs to no woman's sky. They hate that. They say, "You're not even reacting," as if a reaction proves your worth, as if your value as a man is found in how fast you bleed when she wounds you. But you do not bleed anymore, not because you are numb, because you have ruled yourself. That's what the throne is: self-command mistaken for cruelty, stillness mistaken for detachment, indifference mistaken for inhumanity. But you are not inhuman. You have simply left the realm of boys who flinch for kisses. And when she tests you with silence, with fury, with tears, she half believes she is not testing your love. She is testing your threshold, the edge where most men break and perform devotion to stop the discomfort. You let the discomfort breathe. You let it expand, fill the room, sit beside you like an old friend. You do not swat it away. You do not explain. You do not soothe. You wait. And she breaks before you do. Because no woman has ever truly wanted a man she could emotionally train. She may love the leash, but only when she knows it will never fasten around your throat. Do you remember the first time you looked into a woman's crying eyes and felt nothing? Not contempt, not hatred, just a distant, silent knowing that none of it was about truth, that the tears were a language of power, and that power only works on the man who needs to be forgiven. You did not need it. You were already sovereign. That's the throne. The man who is not seduced by being misunderstood. The man who does not chase redemption through her mood swings. The man who knows that love, real love, does not require him to collapse into someone else's chaos. She may call you arrogant, emotionally stunted. She may weaponize empathy. She may say, real men fight for love. But you are not fighting, you are reigning, and reign does not perform. She may try to draw you into war, to bait you with distance, to shame you with her pain, to ignite you with accusations. But the Stoic knows the battle is not between you and her. It is between you and yourself. She is not your enemy. She is your test. And the man who passes does not need her surrender. He already has it. Not because he demanded it, not because he manipulated it, but because she could not move him and the female psyche, buried deep beneath centuries of myth and blood, surrenders only to the force it cannot shake. She surrenders when she sees that your fire burns under ice, and that her games only warm the surface. You've become that fire, not by acting strong, but by ceasing to need her weakness as proof of your strength. You let her emotions collapse without scaffolding. You let her narratives twist and fold without protest. You do not defend yourself against her interpretations. You do not beg for fairness. You know that fairness is not the currency of attraction. Tension is. And nothing creates tension like the man who listens with a straight spine and gives nothing back but the weight of his gaze. In that gaze, she sees the horror that you will not be moved by manipulation, nor praised into performance, nor shattered by her withdrawal. You are the throne. She kneels not out of reverence, but out of helplessness. She cannot rule what she cannot shake. She cannot love what she does not respect. And she cannot respect the man who falls every time she cries. The Stoic does not fall. He watches. He waits. And when she throws herself into her own emotional fire, he does not burn with her. He lets her burn alone. Because the throne of indifference is not about not feeling. It is about not offering your soul as currency for her approval. You are the man who walks out without slamming the door, the man who smiles when accused, the man who says, "You're free to feel what you feel," and means it not as a tactic, but as a law of being. She wanted to see you unravel. Instead, she saw you rule. And in that moment, that terrifying, electrifying moment, her power melted. Not because you broke her, but because you never asked her to hold you. That is why the throne remains. Because no woman can sit beside the man who does not need her to explain herself. And no woman dares to chain the man who no longer flinches. You used to answer too quickly. A pause from her was a threat, and you filled it with proof that you were still worthy of frantic offering of words, of reasons, of emotion rehearsed in the mirror of her silence. You told yourself you were being honest, vulnerable, kind, but she was not listening to your words. She was measuring your need. Each explanation you gave was not received, it was logged. Each emotional clarification etched you deeper into her memory, not as a man, but as a boy, desperate not to be left behind. You thought she wanted connection. She wanted confirmation, not of truth, but of leverage. She wanted to see how far you'd crawl to repair what she claimed was broken. And you did crawl. Once. Many times. Because you thought love required it. But every time you reached out, something inside her recoiled not in cruelty, but in instinct. Like a wolf watching its prey die too quickly. disappointed, unsatisfied. She needed your defiance, not your explanation. She wanted to see what you would not do for her, and so she pushed harder. The more you explained, the more she withdrew, the more you bled, the colder her eyes. Not because she was evil, but because you were already dying. And there's nothing more boring to the feminine eye than a man in emotional hospice. You begged once, maybe not in words, but in posture. The way you hovered, the way you tried to fix the atmosphere, to clean the emotional mess she made without her asking. The way you lowered your tone to match her tears. That was the funeral. And she wrote your name on the tombstone. Here lies the man who could not stand still in the storm. You weren't wrong to care, but you mistook care for performance. You thought urgency proved devotion, but urgency is the scent of fear, and fear, especially emotional fear, poisons desire. You became prey the moment you forgot that silence is more powerful than apology. She accused you of not being present. You rushed in with open hands. She cried, "You're not listening." So you leaned forward with rehearsed compassion. She said, "I don't feel safe." So you shaped yourself like a wall to protect her. And yet, she never relaxed. She never softened. She only hardened. Because each gesture revealed the same fatal truth. You needed her to approve of your feelings. She could never trust that. She watched you react. Watched your face shift when she pulled away. Watched the flicker of panic, even when you said you were fine. And each flicker confirmed her suspicion you were still seeking her emotional permission to exist. She didn't respect that. She couldn't, because somewhere deep in her bones, older than any culture, the feminine only submits to power, not persuasion. And reacting is always persuasion. Please believe me. Please understand. Please don't leave. Each sentence may be hidden, but the energy screams it. She heard it, and she mourned the man who once looked like he might be fire only to burn into ash the moment she pulled back. Her warmth. She tested you, not to destroy you, but to find the edge where you stopped being yourself and started performing for her comfort. And you revealed it too soon. You adjusted. You compromised. You corrected your tone, your breath, your words not because you chose to, but because you had to. She could feel the compulsion, the need to get it right, and in that need, you became a mirror of all the men she had already buried. The man who lives by reaction dies by it, because she controls the weather, and if you adjust your sails every time she storms, she knows the ship was never yours. A woman does not want to lead. She wants to feel your gravity even when she pushes, especially when she pushes. But when you orbit around her moods, her feelings, her edits of the past, you are not gravity, you are debris, and she grieves that. The death of the reacting man is not a moment. It is a shedding, a slow removal of every habit that once gave her the reins. You stop answering immediately. You stop justifying your pauses. You stop matching her emotional pitch like a desperate echo. You stop explaining your intentions when accused. You stop clarifying your past like a defendant. And you let the discomfort hang. That's when she begins to see it. The boy is dead. And something else is standing in front of her, something unbothered by her tears, unmoved by her silence, unshaken by her story. She says, "You've changed." You smile, not in cruelty, but in quiet acknowledgement. You've stopped needing her to believe your version of yourself. That is what kills the boy who still seeks motherly warmth in a lover's eyes. The boy who wants to be seen as good, as worthy, as understandable. You no longer need to be understood. You only need to remain. And that terrifies her, because your staying is no longer negotiable. Not because she's calm, not because she's kind, Not because she makes space for you. You stay because you choose to, not to be loved, but because the man you've become no longer kneels to feeling as God. Her chaos no longer cracks you, her sweetness no longer sways you. You are not cruel, you are not numb, you are awake. You feel everything, but you do not obey it. And that is when she pauses, because in that pause, she sees something she never saw in the reacting man. Mystery, power, and the terrifying question she doesn't know how to answer: what moves you? If not her, you do not answer, you never will, and in that silence the boy is gone. There is no more funeral, only the quiet of something that cannot be trained. She lit the match and waited for your forest to catch, not because she needed warmth, but because she wanted proof that she could still make you burn. That was the rhythm spark. Reaction, collapse. A woman's emotional storm has never needed to be rational, only effective. And it was. Once, she could whisper doubt into your chest and feel your pulse quicken. She could lace indifference into her tone and watch you sweat for validation. But now, nothing. Not a flinch, not a spark. And yet you are not cold. You are heat sealed in iron. That is what terrifies her most. Not the man who shuts down, but the man who does not erupt. You do not freeze, you do not vanish. You stay. You remain present, still, conscious. But you do not burn when summoned. You withhold. Not out of cruelty, but because you no longer need combustion to feel alive. She wanted fire as reaction. You've become fire as restraint. There's something maddening in that. The way you look at her while she performs rage, grief, temptation, as if you are watching a storm from behind glass. You're not dissociated, you're deliberate, and that deliberation makes her tremble more than your anger ever did. You used to react. You used to prove that you cared. You used to light yourself like a candle and let her blow you out just to see if you'd light again. That was love, wasn't it? That was closeness to burn together, even if it destroyed you both. But now, you let her ignite her own kindling, and you simply watch, not detached aware, not passive still, and she does not know what to do with that. Because when a man rages, he is still predictable. When he retreats, he is still manageable. But when he stays, sees everything, and does not give her the fire she came to steal, she begins to panic. Not visibly at first, but it starts to flicker in her breath, in the way she repeats herself, hoping to provoke the old reflexes, in the way she adds venom to her voice, hoping you will finally rise, finally react, finally lose the control that now defines your presence. But the Stoic does not rise. The Stoic remains seated in the temple of his own restraint and lets her exhaust her own flame. You see it now, the ritual, the cycles, the temptation to let your fire speak for you, to shout so that you feel powerful, to break silence because silence makes you feel invisible. But you've already died that way once. You've been the man who burned too easily and it left you ash in her memory. So now you hold it, and she senses it, the fire you do not release. It becomes a pressure in the room, an atmosphere around you. The absence of reaction becomes its own presence, and that presence draws her toward you like heat that cannot be seen, only felt beneath the skin. She will test it. She will say you're closed off, emotionally constipated, that you're scared of intimacy. She will name your firelessness as weakness because she cannot admit the truth your withholding is the most intimate thing she has ever felt. You are not trying to be unaffected. You simply refuse to be governed. There is a difference, and she knows it. She begins to unravel, not because you hurt her, but because you didn't need to be hurt for her to feel seen. She's never known that kind of man. A man who watches her pain without flinching and yet does not abandon her. A man who does not try to fix her, but also does not let her chaos define the space between you. You are not moved by demand. You are moved by choice. And she knows once a man chooses rather than reacts, he cannot be owned. That is the secret. You do not withhold to punish. You withhold to remain sovereign. There's fire inside you. You feel it when her words cut beneath the ribs, when she turns away with that smug flicker in her mouth, when she lies and watches your face like a child testing the edge of a knife. You feel the flame rise, the urge to shout, to expose, to dominate. But that is the flame of the undisciplined, and you let it pass. Not because you're weak, because you are stronger than the fire she wants you to use. She wanted chaos to meet chaos. Instead, she meets clarity, and clarity to the emotional manipulator is unbearable. It's like holding a mirror to a storm and realizing it can't crack glass. You do not argue, you do not chase, you do not rush to clarify what she's already chosen to misunderstand. You let her projections hang in the air like smoke, and you breathe in the truth that she is not attacking you, but testing the shape of her own ghost against the edge of your stillness. She wants to feel her own edges, and you are the mirror. Unbroken, unyielding. You used to think love was fire shared, passion as combustion, but now you see love without control is not fire, it is light. And the man who holds fire inside him without releasing it to prove his worth is the man who eventually blinds her. Because once the fire stops being reactive, it becomes revelation, and no woman can manipulate what she cannot ignite. She may leave. She may scream that you never truly loved her. She may accuse you of being a monster. But beneath it all, she will remember the one thing she never understood. You didn't break when she tried to make you break, and you didn't burn when she built you a pyre. You stood in the center of the ritual and withheld, and now she sees what you really are, not the fire she wanted to steal, but the God who never needed to flame at all. She will call it cruelty, but only because she could not name the shape of something that didn't collapse when she screamed. She will pace through rooms filled with softer men who ignite too quickly, who smolder under her silence, who explain and beg and prove, and each one will remind her of what you were not. She will touch their warmth and find it burns too soon. She will miss the fire that stayed inside you, the one she could feel beneath your skin but never command. She will miss the silence that watched her unravel, the gaze that neither rescued nor punished. And one night, when her reflection flickers in a mirror no longer hers, she will wonder, did he ever truly feel? And the answer never spoken, never written, will rise from the shadows of her memory, unbroken and burn without flame. Let her wonder, let the echo live, let the throne remain untouched.